Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. What's up, guys? I got JR on today for Limitless Prospecting. Thanks for getting on, first of all. Short notice, like I always do. Last minute. Hey, let's do this thing, right? I hit you up at 7 a.m. and we're on at 11:45. So I wanted to bring JR on just because he's been in the group for what, about a year and a half?
About a year and a half.
Yeah, been a year and a half. Consistent. I feel like you're always on the weekly calls, at least when you can make it, even though you don't need to be, because I probably say a lot of the same things over and over and over again. But, you know, there's always little nuggets to learn. And I think more than anything, just staying plugged in with the industry when you're in an industry is huge. But the thing reason why I wanted to kind of bring you on was you've really kind of taken hold of the lead gen kind of rental model, where I feel like a lot of people, they kind of go the SEO only route and they don't develop their own properties. And so I thought it was just interesting. Like, I think you made a post yesterday that you have like 20 rental sites out there.
Correct.
And it's so cool because you look at I always look at real estate, right? I always talk about real estate and how much it would cost to have 20 rental homes, even if they were $100,000, $150,000 homes. I mean, you're talking $2.5 million in real estate to have that type of rental. And you've been able to do it with these 20 properties with, at a fraction, right? Thousandth of a fraction. But yet they still bring in rental income like an actual home, like a $500 to $1,000 a month rent, which is huge, right? And I was telling you before we even started recording, like, I wish more people, even though I know it can be a little bit more of a slugfest to get the rental properties done and find the tenant to put in there that's going to pay you the monthly fee, the control that you hold when you own that property and that tenant wants to vacate maybe in the future, and all of your hard work has been, it's been encapsulated in time from all the backlinking you did months and months ago. You own that property. And I really hope people watch this interview and take note of it, because too many people give up on the rental side of things and the lead gen side, and they go SEO because it's a check today. But it's a check today. But I was talking with one of our best students yesterday, and they have a really big client that they've been doing only SEO for, and that is a big chunk of their income, and that income is going to drop off now. That client's saying, oh, well, I think we're going to do a different direction. And in your case, it's like, okay, you can go wherever you want. I got 25 other clients that would love all these leads, and I own it, So I think that's cool just from your story standpoint. But let's kind of jump into your top 2 or 3 prospecting techniques, kind of what you're doing, so people could kind of take a look into your world, into your business.
Okay. Well, since I concentrate mostly on lead gen, I don't go looking for SEO. So SEO kind of has to come to me. Somebody either seeks me out or it gets referred to me. Right. And so my top way that I do get leads is from referrals.
Okay.
And I've made some business relationships with some people that I've known from past business, and also from some people where I've helped them to develop their site. For instance, I have one that's in Las Vegas, and he's a business consultant. And so he helps people a lot with getting their businesses started. And so he refers people to me all the time.
Yeah, it's a great referral agent. I think the toughest thing, so everyone I've interviewed, every one of them, referral is in their top technique that they your now for getting business. And so it's just interesting, and it's really good for people to hear that, because it only takes a couple of your first few deals to start getting those referrals in. I think the hardest part for people is it's hard to get referrals when you don't have any clients yet, right? So one technique that I think is really important that people kind of latch onto is, if you don't have clients, and you're hearing all these successful students all get lots of referrals, go be an intern. Go work for free on your first deal, if you have to build the trust, to build the case study. Especially if those people are potential connectors. They know everyone, like this business coach. Imagine if you go do that guy a solid. He's going to blab and run his mouth about JR everywhere. And yeah, it costs you maybe some time, but that's your cost to acquire your leads, right?
Right.
And I think we don't, as marketers, we only look at how much cash we're going to get in from every client. And sometimes we got to just say, hey, look, I'm going to invest my time and energy and effort and maybe even some of my money into this one guy because he's got the keys to the castle to every one of the people out there that I need to be doing business with. And I just need his referral, right? So what sorts of things, I know you do some kickbacks too, like when someone gives you business, you were talking to me about that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I have no problem giving a referral fee. In fact, I usually offer something that's about equivalent to the first month's rental on one of my sites to somebody who gives me a referral that turns into a rental.
Okay.
So that works really well. In the case of my guy in Las Vegas, since I built his web property for him, I told him what it was going to cost him per month, and then I've never charged him that because I get so many leads from him. And he'll even go to the point where I'll see him posting on Facebook where he'll comment about the fact that if you are not using my services, you're leaving money on the table. He posted something like that the other day.
That's the best. The best type of person is someone else doing the cheerleading for you, because it's not you sitting there telling everyone how great you are. It's someone else telling. And that's always the best way to get a client. I got referred. It was my brother referred me to a guy. I was talking about this last night on the call. And I showed up to the meeting with this tank top and board shorts on and flip-flops, and it didn't matter. The guy's like, well, your brother, I saw him at the gym. He said you're legit, so let's talk. And it's like, cool, totally comfortable. I don't need to go in and impress him. I've already been edified by someone else. I guess we can't hammer it home enough. Once you get a couple of these deals going, those referrals are going to be a huge source of income. But you got to stick with it. You got to get your first couple clients. You might even have to do some pro bono work if you struggle on getting that first client, because you want those connectors sending you business. Let's move to the next kind of thing that you do. That's with vendors. You're talking about like how you get business that way. Talk about that.
It just makes so much sense, and you do it too. Whenever I've got to have something done around the house, I start interviewing the vendors that I'm going to bring in. So if I'm going to do, like I did carpet cleaning on a unit that I had across the street from this particular house, and it was turning into a rental property. So I started talking to carpet cleaners. I picked one that I liked, and I knew he didn't rank well. And I sat there with him the whole time he was cleaning the carpets on his shoulder, talking to him about what I could do for him and how I could make him more money. By the time we were done, I had him signed up as a $600 a month client. So I do this all the time. I've got a new vendor coming out to install pavers in my patio next week, and I'm going to do the same thing with him. So I approach any vendor that I'm doing business with and try and get business out of them.
Yeah, I look at it, I call it the license to pitch, right? You
right.
hired them, you're paying them oftentimes, which, there's a difference when you exchange money with someone else and you give them that person money for their labor. That reciprocation. There's definitely that feeling of reciprocation that we all have as humans, and I don't think that strategy is done enough. I don't think people are thinking about their business 24/7. So when they need something done around their house, they don't automatically go like, "Oh my gosh, I could help this person." But yet every one of us that's going to be watching this, we all live somewhere. We all have things done from time to time, maybe some more than others. But the bottom line is if every time you guys are buying carpet cleaning or getting some drywall fixed or hiring a painter to do some trim work, these are all licenses to pitch these folks. And if you do it the right way, you're going to get a lot of these services for free at the end of the day too. I know that's what I do a lot. I oftentimes just trade them out for some fixes and some help. But I think it's a great one. I think it gets overlooked. I don't think enough people are doing it, but I think it's a great one that you're bringing up here. Talk to me about some of the other things you're doing. I know you talked about batch calling, some of the strategies you use when you build a lead gen site. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Right. And I'll give you a great backstory on batch calling. I'll explain what it is first. Okay. Batch calling is that whenever I'm researching a niche, either for somebody else or for myself, like I've had people who've approached me and said, well, I need leads in XYZ city for this type of business. And I'll research it and I'll quote them a price. And they'll say, oh, no, I don't want to pay that. Well, immediately that's my license to launch. So And so I really don't care. I mean, if somebody says, hey, you know, $1,250 isn't a month and is too much, then I know that I'm going to go launch it anyway, and maybe I'm only going to get $900 a month for it, but I'm going to launch it as a lead gen site regardless of that guy turning me down or not. But at that point, I have already made a list of all of his competitors, and so I've got that list going. So I launch the site, I get it all built, I start it ranking, I start running AdWords on it, and then I sit down with my batch, and my batch is that list, and I just start going right down that list, calling all of those guys to see which one of them is going to bite. And I have closed huge deals on the phone doing batches like that. And my big example was last year when we left Reload. You know, everybody went down to the pool on Sunday, and it was just too hot for me. I couldn't stand it out there.
Yeah.
So I went back up. I built a lead gen site, built a batch list, and then Monday when I was sitting at the airport to catch my ride home, I had 15 vendors to call.
Yep.
By the time I hit number 9, I had somebody who was willing to pay me for it. I had asked them, I said, look, if I could get you, 100 new leads per month, what would that do to your business? He says, oh, I'd make another 300 grand a year. And I said, well, then would it be worth paying me 30 grand a year for that? And he said, absolutely. And so just like that, I had to close right then and there on the phone with somebody that I'd never met. I didn't show him a website. I didn't do anything other than tell him what kind of leads I could produce in his industry. And he was ready to sign up. So, and to go along with that, what had happened was because he was number 9, I'd left voicemail messages for some of the 8 previous to him. And after I get off the phone with him, this woman sitting next to me looks up from her book, just shocked. I mean, she looks at me and she goes, did I just hear you make $30,000? I'm just like, yeah.
Did I just hear you make $30,000? That's hilarious.
And so she goes back to her book, and I get a phone call back from somebody that I'd left a voicemail, and the guy says, well, what are you talking about? And I explained the same thing to him. I said, I'm sorry, you're too late. I've already, I'm already working with somebody, and I can't have 2 vendors in the same business in Las Vegas. And the guy says, all right, I understand that, and that's honorable of you. He said, but if that guy screws you, if he doesn't pay you, you call me because I'll give you 30 grand a year.
Interesting.
And so, and I got him to commit that same thing. So but that's batch calling. I mean, it works really well. I think it's really motivating because when you see that you've got 15 different people, if somebody is pushing back on you, you can push back on them because you really don't care. I mean, if you're dealing with just one guy and one opportunity, you're gonna have it in your gut. Oh crap! I'm not gonna get this deal. Whereas if you got 15, you can say, hey, if you aren't gonna give me 3 grand, I'm just calling your other competitors. So goodbye.
Yeah. And
you hang up and you move on.
Walk us through the scripting of maybe how you approach those phone calls, because I think that's something people often struggle with. Is like I'm not a big cold call guy myself. So
right.
I sit and train a whole bunch on. So it'd be interesting to kind of hear. I mean, we kind of got a glimpse of what you said to the guy, broken up. But like when you're batch calling, so the idea is you identify your marketplace, you build your lead gen site. This lead gen site was less than 12 hours old, right, or 24 hours old. So you're not generating leads in it, but in your gut, you're going to generate leads with it through the different people that . So then you go and you built a batch of all of the people that would be a potential for the leads that this thing is going to produce, the fruit that's going to produce.
Correct.
Their name, their email, their phone number. And then the calling started. And this happened to be in the airport where you're doing the calling. Talk to us about what is that script? What is that like? What does that sound like?
Yeah, the first thing that I'll typically do is because I've already had success in that particular industry, mm-hmm. I'm going to put myself as what a friend of mine calls the expert from out of town. And I have a good friend who had written a book called The Expert from Out of Town, and I believe that it does come across very, very well. I'm not calling on somebody who is in Reno. I'm calling on somebody who's in this other town. So in this particular case, it was Las Vegas. And so I'm going to come that route as that I am the expert in their industry. And the other thing that I do is I call one of my past clients who's already enjoying leads, and I warn them. I say, I'm going to throw your name around a lot and your business name around a lot. So if you get a phone call from somebody, please back me up on this. And so I set that premise first because I am going to mention somebody. And then once I pick up the phone, I just explain right off the bat, with the business manager that, and I'm going to call it plumbing in this case, but it's my niche is I only have one plumber. But what I would say is, hey, I'm the expert in getting leads for plumbers throughout the country. And I've got clients from here to Florida that rely on me to give them a lot of leads and increase their business. And I looked at your situation online, and I can tell right now that you're not getting the bulk of the calls. And the person who's actually getting the bulk of the calls in Las Vegas is Wiley's Plumbing. And they're getting 80% of the phone calls that occur on the internet. And so you've got to look at it and realize Wiley's is doing really well, and they can easily have some business taken away from them. Would you be interested in picking up some of that business? And so if I throw it out that way, one, that I am the expert, two, that there are people in their industry that I already know are beating them, then they're more likely to listen to me because I'm not Joe SEO asshat that's calling up and saying, "Oh, I can get you to the #1 spot in Google."
That's what I was actually gonna stop you when you made your initial and point out to everyone what you didn't say, because to me, that was the most refreshing thing about, and I didn't know what your pitch was. It's just cool to hear it, because the norm of the asshats that call these business owners, you're not ranking very good on Google. What could I could get you to #1. Click, dude. It's every day, 50 times a day. You said things so differently, refreshing, and business owners aren't going to, it's a pattern interrupt to them. It's not the same old that they've heard day in and day out that they're sick and tired of hearing from. So I just want to point that out to everyone, because even people in JK, even though we harp on it nonstop to not be the cliche guy from India doing the scripted pitch that says, I can get you the #1 on Google, people still do it because they can't think outside the box, and they're oftentimes copycat artists.
Right.
So in this case, be a copycat artist of a pitch like that. So let's talk about just a couple things, because I know these questions come up. Like, what's your go-to for gatekeepers? Do you get hit with gatekeepers a lot when you're doing this batch calling?
I don't. I find it surprising that people say that they do, because I really don't get hit with a lot of gatekeepers. And I don't know if it's because I'm finding owners' first names and I'm asking on the first name, or what. I would say I get a gatekeeper maybe 1 out of 30 calls.
Interesting. I wonder if it's the niches you're going into as well.
Probably, because I'm not doing niches where it's a company with a receptionist and a boardroom. These are guys that are in the ditches with their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, you definitely, knowing some of the niches you're in, you're not in the cliche plumbing niche per se,
right.
Which you're going to have oftentimes a gatekeeper or the electrician and the gatekeeper and the things like that. Yeah. So I think that's also something. I'm not going to talk about your niches because those are yours, and you've found some very unique stuff that you want to keep to yourself, which I respect. But I think there's something to be said for, hey, you go into more obscure niches or different types of niches that, they don't get 50 calls a day with even the presentation you just got, or, they're niches where they're kind of sometimes forgotten a little bit.
Right.
And that allows them to not have to deal with these marketing calls day in and day out. The problem with going into the big cliches, the roofers, the tow trucks, the plumbers, the electricians, all the ones that you see so many people still landing deals in JKN, the problem is they get hit by every marketer every day. And so to break through is actually very difficult. But when you get outside the lines, like last night I talked about the food delivery niche, like for these pre-packaged meals, they don't have a receptionist. When you call their business, you're getting the owner on the phone right off the bat, and there's literally no one else in the map pack for that niche in my marketplace. So it's super low-hanging fruit, and they need help, right? So it's like there's a lot of those interesting niches. A really good way for everyone listening to that to kind of jog your memory for interesting niches that maybe is not the cliche. Go on to Google the Google Maps or Google My Business, and just start typing in the word A and then go B. And you're going to see a list of categories come up, and you're going to come up with some interesting niches. For instance, I did, I always say it wrong, but it's feng shui. It's a certain type of interior design. So I was just going A, B, C, D, E, F, and I hit F, and it's like feng shui. So I'm like, well, heck, I'm going to launch a feng shui map listing. Launched it. I get calls I closed it down because I didn't want it, like, I did it like at a specific location. I didn't want people to know I had that location. And I did it. I got it verified. I put a tracking number on it. And that thing gets calls to this day through the tracking line, people looking for interior design specific to feng shui. It's like, and I bet I could call interior designers and get right through them, no gatekeeper, because that's not an industry that has gatekeepers.
Right.
So that is something, like, if I looked through all the questions that people had about limitless prospecting, and they were like, how do you get through the gatekeepers? And I think it's oftentimes get outside the lines of the regular niches and start exploring other things that are interesting and you can get through, and use this batch calling methodology, like JR's saying, like, get a batch of all the people so you know that you don't just have one person, and if they say no, your whole entire life is blown up, Right. Talk to me about the web directory that you've done.
Yeah, I built, ironically, I started building this web directory before I joined JK, and I was doing it with a project with a buddy of mine up in Portland, and he bailed on me. He was like, you build it, I'll sell it, and then I built it and he didn't sell it. So I turned around, I flipped it up for free, and I built it really well. It's got some SEO stuff in it that works really, really well. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I've done is I would go out and invite people to put their listings on it. And so I would go out, and again, in batches, it was the pilot car business. So for pilot car companies across the country. And these guys are schlock. If you think tow truck drivers are bad, you got to meet pilot cars.
Pilot car drivers.
I think that the personalities are that, one, they're all ex-criminals, and two, they have no social skills and belong in a car by themselves. But
actually,
what they'll do is, if they sign up on the site, and they'll put in their phone number and a little bit about their company, and then there's the opportunity to put in web links, social media links, and all of this. And if they don't, they're bait for me. I just call them up and I go, hey, thanks for adding yourself to the site, but you didn't put your website in. And they'll tell me that
I don't have one.
Exactly. So it's an easy one. I mean, and I can keep a prefab.
Like Loving Baby Seals. Bam, bam, bam.
And for that, I just keep a prefab website ready, and I just change out the name on it really quick and show it to them. And so they can see that I've already got a site built for them. And it's just, do you want to buy this or not? So yeah, it's little side money.
Yeah, but it's just smart. Again, obscure niche. You brought value first. So, hey, I got this directory. I mean, guys, just so everyone understands, citations, everyone's always pissed at the citation companies for calling when you add a citation to their site. They're playing the same game JR is playing, right? You just made your own directory. And in all reality, it's pretty easy to make a directory. You can make it on Weebly if you really wanted to. You can make it on a WordPress site if you wanted to. They're not incredibly difficult. You don't have to overthink it. But again, just like the Eugene review strategy, it's like value first before, and oh, you don't have a site, or you don't know how to do leads, or it's the same thing. It's a conversation starter rather than just going in cold, like so many of us. That's the only thing we can come up with. Any other? I mean, I got referrals. We got hiring your local vendors when you got something to do around your house or your rental. One other thing you told me was how you niche down, and you're the expert specifically in these niches. And then I think we should just talk a little bit more about that, because that has came up several times on these interviews of guys going, or gals going, I tell people I'm the expert in this place, and I use other projects that I have to back up and make me the credible source. Talk about that a little bit, how that's helped you land a lot of these deals.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done is, especially in one of my obscure niches, my first client was a call to me. The guy got a hold of me from Austin, Texas, and was like just desperate because he'd spent $5,000 on his website. He was spending $1,500 a month on SEO, and he was getting 2 to 3 leads per month total. And so, he came to me and I saw everything wrong and said, all right, I'll take over this website. And what I cut with him was kind of weird, because I said, I want you to turn over ownership of your domain name to me. That's my security for doing this for you. So I basically took his site and turned it into a lead gen site. Mm. So it was it was a bold move, but he was desperate. So he said, yeah, done. So he transferred the domain to me, and I rebuilt his whole site. And but by the time I was done and I got him ranking, it took about 90 days to get him to the top. And I got him very solidly to the top in his niche. And he called me back and he said, okay, he said, I got to tell you, someday I will be able to retire because of what you did for me. And so I knew that I had a good niche, and I knew that I had a good value for the industry. And so at that point I said, I'm the expert. I'm the expert in marketing that industry. So one of the things that I did, and this was something I learned at Reload last year, was to make an agency site that was specific to the industry.
Right.
So my agency site specific to the industry is a one-page site. It's just a Weebly site, and it's got my name, my phone number, my backstory about what I did for him, and it's all thrown down there with a form on it so that people can, fill out the form to contact me, and that's where I'm getting business from around the globe now for that. And so when I'm on phone calls with people, even batch calling, when I proclaim that I'm the expert, I say, look, if you want me to send you data, I'll send you an email. And I always include a link to that site so that they can see my site that proclaims me the expert. Yeah. And I use that to death. It works very, very well. It's
amazing when you position yourself as an expert, or have some, even if it's a site that you own that you put up that says, xyzexpert.com, or
yep.
It's the expert in it. But it's amazing how people on the internet legitimately believe anything from anyone.
Right.
I look at the freaking jackass in Florida that literally makes videos about me to this day, about anything he wants to say, and people are like, well, he's this guy who doesn't put his face on camera said it, so it must be true. And I'm like, although it's frustrating on one side, it's also amazing on the other side how human psychology works, that I saw it on the internet, and of course then it must be true. Maybe not everyone believes something to be true that they see on the internet, but the vast majority of people, if it's in black and white and someone spent the time putting up a site or making a video and the whole thing, they're sucked into it. I mean, we don't want to get off topic, but look at the freaking news media. Look at freaking what you see on the news every day. They're jamming bullshit down our throats day in and day out. And the sheeple of the world go, well, if it's on the news, it must be true, right?
Right.
So it's from a large standpoint, it's happening, and to a very small standpoint from us as marketers who need to land clients, use it to your benefit. Use it to your benefit. Put it in writing. Make a one-page Weebly site. If you're the pool deck expert, or if you're the XYZ expert, make it. And you could be an expert of 75 different industries when you guys know what you're doing, like you do from everything we've been trained in this program. So I think those little small things that you do are huge tips, huge nuggets that people need to listen to in this, because it's sometimes, I've seen that picture of the guy digging for gold, and it's like he's dug this huge thing out and all the gold's right there, and it's this last little thing, and he turns around and he walks off, And sometimes that last little thing was you having some of this social proof to back you up. You telling your guys that you're sending leads to, that you've changed their life, to say, hey, back me up. I'm going to give your phone number out, and I'm going to have people call you, help me out a little bit. I've helped you out. These are like those small little things that probably would have got people through before they turned around and took off the other direction. So I think people need to really listen to these nuggets that you've kind of dropped on them, because they're working for you.
Yep.
Any other words of wisdom for people?
I think the biggest thing is back to how we started the conversation. I believe in lead gen. I believe in it way more than SEO for the long term. So I think that if you don't constantly make lead gen properties, you're wasting your time. Like I said yesterday, I broke my 20th rental out there just this last week, and I already have 9 more that are on the drawing board, where the URL is bought, where we're working on the copywriting, and we're working on gathering the pictures so we can launch 9 more. And I'm not going to stop. I mean, my goal is to have $250,000 a year coming in just on lead gens.
Yeah.
And that way I never care about the SEO. And again, it's back to that security thing, because just like my batch calling to find people, if I lose a lead gen site, and I've had this happen, and for some reason it's happened in Sacramento to me 3 times, where I've signed a vendor up to take my leads and they never cut me a check. And But because I do batch calling, I mean, I warned a guy. And I had it happen in Las Vegas with the site too. And the guy in Las Vegas, he calls me up and he says, well, we're looking at it and thinking you're charging us about double what we should be paying. So we want to pay you half of what you're saying per month. And I was like, I know how many leads you're getting. And so I said, look, you got 10 minutes to change your mind because I'm going straight to your competitors. I'm going to sell it to one of your competitors for more than you're paying now. And the guy goes, that's not going to happen. And we got off the phone and I pulled out my batch list. I started calling his competitors, and the third guy was willing to pay me more than he was paying me.
Interesting.
So I got a credit card.
Did you use the story, I've been working with your competitor X, Y, and Z?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was going to say I think that's a nugget that people need to know, because I know as a business owner myself, and I've worked with a lot of business owners, both on the lead gen side and the consulting side. And I see the emails come through getting pitched by other companies. Hey, I'm working with X, Y, and Z on X, Y, and Z. And they'll come to me and say, Dan, do we want to pick this up? Because they're working with our competitor. And so there's that internal competitiveness among people in the same industry, especially in the same town. And you don't want to be dethroned as top dog if you're in that space, or you don't want your competitor ever taking business from you. You want it all. And it is a dog eat dog. It's competitive. It's cutthroat. And so when you drop that knowledge on them, like, hey, I've been serving your other client for quite a long time, or the past several months, and I'm just not really getting along and vibing with them anymore, and I'm looking to take my business elsewhere. Number one, what a positioning play. You're the control, not them. Okay. They already know you already have their client as a client. I mean, their competitor as a client. So they are, in a sense, they feel like they're stealing you away. And so it's a totally different authority role than if you call begging for business, Right. So I think mentioning that you work with X, Y, and Z company is huge. I know when I took my taxi company I was working with a smaller company, and I went, as this company was still paying me, I wanted more money. I wasn't getting paid enough for this property I created. It was doing like 2,000 phone calls a month. And so I went to the top dogs in town because I know they have all the money. And I said, listen, I've been working with competitor XYZ, and I'm being severely, I'm not getting what this is worth. I'm generating over 2,000 phone calls a month, and this is what I'm looking for. And I went from $500 to $3,200. Okay, that was the ask. And they said, done. And that was it. I just told these guys, hey guys, I'm going a different direction. I switched the phone number, went to these guys, and they've been paying me ever since. But all they needed to hear was 2,000 phone calls are going to your competitor. Here's the data to back it up. And that was it. They're like, yep, signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yep. Exactly.
So, one thing I will kind of mention too, and I think you'll probably agree with me, if you have a paying client and you don't feel like you're getting enough from that paying client, keep the client paying and then use this strategy to pit them against each other and say, like, but don't fire this client before replacing the client too. Like I've done that and messed myself up there, So yeah. Any other things you could think of from prospecting standpoint?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't blast emails. I don't, we've had conversations on JK recently about that. I'm just not into it because I get so many of them.
Yeah.
Even this morning, I was sending somebody a nasty gram back about proclaiming that they could get me to the #1 spot in Google. It's like, don't get a job, buddy.
Yeah.
You don't belong in this business if that's the way you're going to do it. So
yeah.
I emphasize that I don't send emails. If I do send emails, they're always follow-up emails. It's like, we had a conversation and here's the things you need to know. And at that point, I do the video, what do you call them? The webcasts.
Yeah, screencasts.
Screencasts. I'll do a screencast to somebody that I've had a conversation with and they're on the fence and they aren't going with me. I'll do a screencast for them, but I don't start out by saying, hey, I'm going to send you sorry.
No, you're fine.
I don't start with a, hello, I'm Joe, SEO guy, and I want to send you a screencast. Would you watch it? I don't do that ever.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks. Everyone's got their kind of comfort zones. And so it's interesting, it's actually really cool because we've, like a lot of the other interviews, some of them did mass email. Like that's all they do. And one guy was doing $50K a month and just like, so it's really cool to kind of, I think this whole entire like training series will really give people all these different options to kind of try different stuff and get into their zone where they can flow. But I think the main thing is you gotta wake up and work every day if you want this thing to grow. And I do think that you're poised with the positioning of owning your properties better than even people that might be making more money than you right now for the long game.
Right.
And I can't stress that enough, because I've been doing this for long enough to know how much those assets can be worth 8-9 years from now.
Right.
And when you're only doing service work for businesses, you can get your freaking head cut off tomorrow, and you just gave them all your time, your knowledge, your expertise, and they get to ride that for a long period of time, and you get no money for it. So I think I think people really need to take note of that side of the business. The other thing that I think is going to be coming down the pike in this year, at least I'm going to start switching things up for some of my stuff is, we talk about lead gen, and you have all these 20 lead gen properties. If you look at like Uber as an example, Uber doesn't give leads. Uber gives buyers. Okay. And I think there's going to be a shift, in the lead gen space, where guys like you and me who own several lead gen properties in different industries, we move from lead generator to actually buyer generator, and we control the whole entire process all the way through with the call center. And we all of a sudden, like the mafia, become a little bit more pushy about who, we can basically call the shots, and these businesses that you're making an extra $300,000 a year from, that you did it, you should be making 150 grand of that. And now that client's worth 100, or now that lead gen site's worth 150K a year instead of, 15K a year.
Right.
And I see that as the next growth in what I'm going to do. But you can only do it as if you're in full control of all these lead gen properties, because you could switch that on a dime and say, no, all leads come to me now in my call center, and we are going to vet buyers. We're going to be kind to them on the phone. We're going to be over the top, and we're going to control the entire process, and we're going to give buyers out to business owners, but we're taking 50%. We're taking a mafia cut for doing it, because we're the most important people in the room at that point.
Sure.
And I think that's a big point where I'm going.
Yeah, and I can see that working really well. In 2 industries right now I'm looking at, like my window tint guy drives me crazy. I could easily have more than one window tint guy working for me and just call them up and say, okay, I'm cutting you a check for $120 and you're going to tint this car.
Yep.
And I could do that. I also have a case where I have a carpet cleaner that is horrible on the phone. And I think I could sell his services better than he sells his services, because he always comes across like a grump on the phone.
Yep.
And so what if I'm sitting there telling the people what my price is going to be, and then I tell him what I'm paying him, and I just, put it on his phone.
And then you get rid of the entire thing and you put it into a call center and let them do it. They're scripted, train them, it's done. Like yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, but I got a lead that came through on my my pool cleaning site. I took it. I signed the lady up for $80 a month, recurring revenue for her to go out there and do hot tub cleaning. But I was nice. I was friendly. I got her a price right there on the phone, and I took care of her needs. And then I gave it off to the guy. And so I delivered a buyer to her, or to him, excuse me. And so when you can deliver buyers, you can take equity in people's companies, or you own the company and they work for you. And
Absolutely.
It's the difference of one lead gen site making you, like I said, $1,500 a month or 15 grand a month. And then you don't really need to have too many lead gen properties, because you basically are quarterbacking the entire thing. And that's going to be a shift in this space at some point. I know I'm going that direction hard.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and one last thing on lead gens is you never know what's going to happen. And I have a really weird example, because it was in a niche that I didn't want to get into. And I looked at it and did it because it was one of my referrals. And that was horse boarding. And this woman had a messed up site. It really needed to be fixed. I didn't look at it as being a big dollar site for me, and neither did she. I mean, she wasn't going to pay much at all. We settled on $200 a month.
how much?
$200. And I rebuilt her site. So I wasn't real thrilled with the site anyway, because of the fact that, I wasn't going to make big money long term. But I knew that the leads were coming in, and the site looked gorgeous. And so it was a good fix for her. And she paid me for a couple of months, and then she called me and she says, I got a major problem. She goes, your website sold my business. And I was like, what? She says, yeah. She says, these people approach me and they want to buy my business because of your website. So I have to include that website in the purchase price of my business. And I was looking at it going, well, I'm not making that much off this one anyway. So I didn't know where to go with it. But I said, it's a lead gen property for me that you're talking about. And so this thing's going to have money for me for years and years and years, even if it's not for you. So I don't know if I would really want to sell it. And she says, if I made you a cash offer today? And I said, well, hit me. I said, tell me how much you would give me, and I'll tell you if I would take your money today. And she goes, I'll give you $5,000 if you'll take it right now. And I was like, done. I had less than a day's worth of work into this and maybe 2 or 3 more days of SEO work on it. That was it. And I sold it for $5,000.
Same thing, exact same thing with my lead gen property for my limo company. It did the same thing. Like, that was a big part of the deal was, yeah, we'll buy the limo for way more than we should be because we wanted that. That's generating all the phone calls. And so that's why I'm just trying to stress this so much so people will go down this path a little bit more and trust in owning some of these projects or these properties themselves instead of like always being on the tit of a business owner that could cut you at any time. Stay in control. You're the most important person in the room. I think we can leave it at that. So, hey, man, we're going to see you in Vegas in, 1 or 2 days? You going to be out there?
A couple days.
Awesome, man. Well, I look forward to seeing you. I'm going to go. I got to figure out what I'm going to say still. So I got it. All right. Just got to take a couple more notes. But thanks for jumping on with me today. I look forward to seeing you this weekend.
All right, Dan. See you soon.
All right. That's it.